The sacred temple on Zilani Prime was bigger than any building Jake had ever seen. It rose from the center of the capital city like a golden mountain, its spires reaching so high they disappeared into the clouds. Strange symbols covered every surface, glowing with soft blue light that pulsed like a heartbeat. Jake and his crew stood at the base of the temple steps, surrounded by thousands of Zilani who had gathered to witness their arrival. The crowd was silent, but Jake could feel their hope and desperation like a physical weight pressing down on him. "Sacred guardians," said High Priestess Mira, an ancient Zilani with pure white fur and eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. "You have come at last to receive the message left by the Guardian Supreme. The temple has waited 2,000 years for this moment." She led them up the steps, moving slowly but with dignity. The other Zilani followed at a respectful distance, their whispered prayers echoing off the temple walls. Inside, the temple was even more magnificent. The ceiling stretched so high it was lost in shadows, and the walls were covered in murals depicting the great battle against the Scorth. Jake could see human figures fighting alongside Zilani, their faces painted with determination and courage. "The inner sanctum is ahead," High Priestess Mira said. "Only the sacred guardians may enter. It has been sealed since the day the Guardian Supreme departed." They walked through corridors lined with statues of human and Zilani warriors. Jake noticed that the human figures looked exhausted, wounded, but never defeated. Their faces showed pain but also an unbreakable will to keep fighting. The inner sanctum was a small circular room with a pedestal in the center. On the pedestal sat a device that looked almost human in design, but far more advanced than anything Jake had seen before. "This is what he left for you," High Priestess Mira said. "He said it would activate only when the children of Earth arrived." Jake approached the device cautiously. As soon as he got close, it began to glow. A holographic figure appeared above it, and Jake's breath caught in his throat. The figure was definitely human, but unlike any human Jake had ever seen. He was tall and scarred, wearing armor that looked both ancient and impossibly advanced. His eyes held a weariness that spoke of centuries of fighting, but also a strength that seemed unbreakable. "If you are seeing this message," the figure said in perfect English, "then you are the children of Earth that I spoke of. I am Marcus Cole, once of the Earth colony ship Endeavor, now Guardian Supreme of the Zilani people." Jake felt his legs go weak. This was impossible. Earth had never sent colony ships to this part of space. "I know you must be confused," Marcus continued. "The Earth you know probably never sent ships like the Endeavor. But time is not a straight line, young Guardians. There are paths through the void that lead to different winds as well as different wares." Dr. Parker stepped forward. "He's talking about time travel." "The war against the Scorth is not just fought across space," Marcus said, as if he could. "Hear her. It is fought across time itself. The Scorth exists outside normal time, consuming realities and possibilities. We Guardians are pulled from different eras of human history to fight them wherever and whenever they appear." Jake stared at the hologram. "Different eras? I was pulled from your future, from a time when Earth had colonies among the stars. Others come from even further ahead, or from timelines that may never exist. We are scattered across the galaxy and across time, fighting to protect civilizations from the Scorth threat." The image flickered, and Jake could see pain in Marcus's eyes. "The battle here cost us dearly. Of the 50 Guardians who came to save the Zilani, only 12 survived. We drove off the Scorth, but we were too injured to continue the fight, so we did what we could. We helped the Zilani become strong, taught them to defend themselves, and we waited for the children of Earth to find their way to the stars." "Why?" "You?" Jake asked, though he knew the hologram couldn't answer. "You are asking why you," Marcus said, and Jake nearly jumped. "Because you are the beginning young Guardian. You are the first humans to leave Earth and find their way to this part of space. Through you, Earth will learn of the greater war. Through you, humanity will take its place among the Guardians of time and space." The hologram gestured and knew. Images appeared around the room. Jake saw battles across a dozen different worlds, human figures fighting impossible odds against creatures of darkness and chaos. The Scorth will return, Marcus warned. They always do. But they will not find the Zilani weak and defenseless as before. And they will not find Earth ignorant of the threat. What are we supposed to do? Lisa asked. You will know when the time comes, Marcus replied. But first, you must help the Zilani understand that true strength does not come from worship, but from partnership. The old ways, the bonding ceremonies, they were created by fear. The Zilani were so grateful to be saved that they made us into gods. But gods cannot teach mortals to be strong. Jake felt pieces clicking together in his mind. That's why you want us to change the system. The Zilani must learn to stand as equals, not servants. They have the strength within them, but they have forgotten it in their worship of us. Only by treating them as partners can you help them remember their own power. The image of Marcus began to fade. There is a communication device hidden in this temple. When the Scorth return, use it to contact the other guardians scattered across time and space. You will not fight alone. Wait, Jake called out. How do we know when they're coming? You will know, Marcus said, his voice growing faint. The darkness spreads before them like a plague. Worlds go silent, stars dim and die. When that begins, the Scorth are near. The hologram disappeared, leaving them alone in the small room. Jake stared at the empty space where Marcus had been, his mind struggling to process everything he had heard. Time travel, Pete said quietly. Guardian armies pull from different eras of human history. No wonder the Zilani see us as divine. But we're not divine, Dr. Parker said. We're just the first wave, the beginning of something bigger. Jake turned to High Priestess Mira, who had been standing silently by the door. Did you know? Did you know about the other Guardians, about the war across time? Some of it, she admitted. The deepest secrets are passed down only to the High Priestesses. We knew that the Guardian Supreme spoke of a greater battle of others, like him fighting across the stars. But we also knew that the children of Earth would be different, younger, less experienced, but with the potential to become something great. That's why the traditional bonding system has to change, Zara said from behind them. Jake hadn't heard her enter the sanctum. If we're going to help you become the guardians you're meant to be, we need to be partners, not servants. Jake looked around at his crew, seeing the same realization dawning in their eyes. They had come out here as explorers, but they were being called to something much bigger. The noble houses won't like this, he said. When we tell them that they're gods are, just men from Earth's future, that the bonding system needs to change, they'll resist. Then we show them what true partnership can accomplish, Zara said. We prove that equals working together are stronger than masters and servants. And if the Scorth return while we're trying to change an entire civilization, Ryan asked Jake. Thought about Marcus's words, about the other guardians scattered across time and space, all fighting the same battle in different whens and wheres. Then we'll face them the way humans always face impossible odds, he said, together never giving up and refusing to let evil win. High Priestess Myra smiled, and for the first time since they'd met her, it wasn't the smile of someone worshiping a god. It was the smile of someone who had found hope. The Guardian Supreme chose well, she said. Earth's children will make worthy guardians indeed. Jake looked around the sacred room one more time, then headed for the door. They had work to do, and not much time to do it. Somewhere out in the dark between the stars, ancient enemies were stirring. But for the first time since arriving in Zilani space, Jake felt ready for the challenge. After all, he was human, and humans never gave up. The conference room was packed with more Zilani than Jake had ever seen in one place. Admiral Voss sat at the head of the table, but she looked nervous and kept glancing at the door. Beside her were 3 other high-ranking officers that Jake hadn't met before. Their robes were more elaborate than the others, covered in golden symbols that seemed to move in the light. Sacred Guardians, Admiral Voss began, her voice formal and strained. I must inform you that word of your arrival has spread throughout the fleet. Many of our people wish to speak with you about matters of great importance. Jake looked around the room at the dozens of Zilani faces, all staring at him and his crew with desperate hope. What kind of matters? One of the new officers, an elderly male with silver fur, stood up. Sacred One, I am High Commander Thane of the Second Fleet. I have the honor of speaking for the noble houses of Zilani Prime. What do the noble houses want? Dr. Parker asked. They want to serve you, Sacred One. Each of the great families has prepared their finest children to be bonded companions to your crew. It is a privilege that has been fought over for generations. Jake felt his stomach drop. Fought over? Indeed, High Commander Thane continued. The House of Star Watchers has claimed first rights, as young Zara has already approached you. But the House of Moonrunners disputes this, saying their daughter Kira is better trained. The House of Sunblades insists that their son Nex is the most skilled warrior and would better serve your protection needs. How many houses are there? Pete asked, looking pale. 47 major houses, each with multiple candidates, another officer replied. And that's just the nobility. Common families have also prepared their children for this honor. Jake exchanged glances with his crew. Lisa looked shocked. Ryan was frowning deeply, and Dr. Parker was shaking her head. Sacred Ones, Admiral Voss. Say quietly, there is more. According to our laws, you cannot leave Zilani space without accepting bonded companions. To refuse will be seen as rejecting our entire culture and religion. It will be an act of war. The room fell silent. Jake could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. An act of war? He said slowly. The texts are clear, High Commander Thane said. When the Guardians return, they must choose companions from among the faithful. It is written that those who are chosen will help spread the Guardians' wisdom throughout our society. Without this, the prophecy cannot be fulfilled. And if the prophecy isn't fulfilled, Ryan asked, then the Guardians were not true Guardians, Admiral Voss said, her voice barely a whisper. And we would have to protect ourselves from false prophets. Jake felt the weight of the situation settling on his shoulders. They were trapped. If they refuse to participate in this companion system, they will be seen as enemies. If they accept it, they will be participating in something that felt like slavery. Sacred Ones, came a new voice from the back of the room. A young Zilani. Female stepped forward. She was beautiful, with golden fur and green eyes that sparkled with intelligence. I am Kira of the House of Moonrunners. I have trained for 20 years to serve a guardian. I can cook, clean, fight, and provide companionship. I have memorized every word of the sacred text and can speak 5 human languages. Before Jake could respond, another Zilani stood up. This one was male, with dark fur and scars across his muzzle. I am Nex of the House of Sunblades. I have been trained as a warrior since birth. I can protect the Guardian from any danger, and I have sworn a blood oath to give my life for my chosen Guardian. Sacred Ones, called out another voice. Then another. Soon the room was filled with Zilani calling out their names, their qualifications, their desperate desire to serve. Jake stood up, and the room fell silent. Stop, he said quietly. Just stop. He looked around the room at all the hopeful faces, all the desperate eyes. These people have built their entire lives around this moment, and he was about to destroy everything they believed in. I need to speak with my crew, he said. Alone. Admiral Voss nodded. Of course, Sacred One. We will wait for your decision. The Zilani filed out of the room, leaving Jake alone with his team. As soon as the door closed, everyone started talking at once. This is insane, Ryan said. We can't accept servants. It goes against everything we believe in. But if we don't, they'll consider us enemies, Lisa pointed out. We could start a war. So what? Pete said. We're supposed to participate in slavery to avoid a fight. It's not slavery if they choose it. Dr. Parker said slowly. But it's still wrong. Jake sat down heavily in his chair. Zara warned me about this. She said there would be others, but I didn't think it would be this many. What did she tell you exactly? Lisa asked. She asked to be my bonded companion. When I said no, she seemed willing to accept being my partner instead. But she also said hundreds more will compete for the honor when we reach their homeworld. Maybe we could convince them all to be partners instead of servants, Pete suggested. 47 noble houses, Ryan said, plus common families. We're talking about thousands of people who have trained their entire lives for this. And according to their laws, we have to accept some of them, or they'll consider us false prophets. Dr. Parker added. Jake rubbed his temples. There has to be a solution. Some way to honor their culture without participating in something we can't accept. The door chimed, and Zara entered. She looked around at the grim faces, and her ears drooped. Sacred ones, I apologize for interrupting. But I could not help overhearing the discussion. May I speak? Of course, Jake said. We need all the help we can get. Zara sat down at the table, no longer hesitating to take a seat among them. The law says you must accept bonded companions. But it does not say what kind of bond must be formed. What do you mean? Dr. Parker asked. The ancient texts speak of different types of bonds. The traditional bonding ceremony creates a master-servant relationship. But there are other ceremonies mentioned in the old writings. Partnership bonds, friendship bonds, even equality bonds. Equality bonds? Jake leaned forward. Tell me about those. They are very old, from before the traditional interpretation became law. An equality bond creates a partnership between two beings who choose to work together for a common purpose. Both parties have equal say in decisions, and both can end the bond if they choose. Would that satisfy the law? Lisa asked. I believe so. The law says bonded companions must be chosen. It does not specify which type of bond. Jake felt a spark of hope. But would the noble houses accept this? Would they see it as fulfilling? The prophecy? Zara was quiet for a moment. Some would. The younger generation especially. Many of us have always felt uncomfortable with the traditional bonding ceremony. But the older houses, the traditionalists, they would resist. What about Admiral Voss? Where does she stand? She follows the law, but she is not unreasonable. If you can convince her that equality bonds fulfill the prophecy, she might support you. Jake looked around at his crew. What do you think? Could we make this work? It's better than the alternative, Pete said. At least we wouldn't be accepting slaves. But we'd still be taking people away from their families, their lives, Dr. Parker pointed out. Not necessarily, Zara said. Equality bonds don't require the Zilani to leave their homes permanently. They could spend time with you, learn from you, then return to share what they've learned with their people. Like exchange students, Lisa. Sighed, cultural ambassadors. Exactly. And the Guardians could also learn from the Zilani, creating a true exchange of knowledge and culture. Jake felt the pieces clicking together in his mind. Zara, do you think this could work? Really work? I think it's our best chance, she said. But Sacred One... Jake. There will be resistance. Some of the houses will not accept anything less than traditional bonding. They might challenge your right to change the ceremonies. What kind of challenge? Combat trials. Tests of worthiness. They might even demand that you prove you are true Guardians by performing the same feats as the original Guardians. Jake closed his eyes. Like fighting the Scorth. The Scorth are gone, Zara said. But there are other threats. Pirates, rogue AI systems, remnants of the old wars. The houses might demand that you prove your divine nature by facing these dangers. So we're back to being expected to be gods, Ryan said grimly. Not gods, Zara said. But heroes, leaders, the kind of people worth following. Jake opened his eyes and looked at his crew. They were scared. He could see it in their faces. But they were also determined. They had come out here to explore, to make contact with new civilizations, to represent the best of humanity. All right, he said. Let's try it. Let's see if we can turn this companion system into something better. And if the traditionalists won't accept it. Dr. Parker asked. Jake stood up, feeling the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders. Then we'll prove that humans are worth following, not because we're divine, but because we're willing to do what's right. Zara smiled, and for the first time since they met, it was the smile of an equal addressing an equal. Then let's go change the world, she said. Jake stood at the window of his guest quarters aboard the Zilani ship, watching the stars drift by. It had been 3 days since Admiral Voss had agreed to take them to the sacred temple on the Zilani homeworld. 3 days of constant worship, gifts, and ceremonies that made him more uncomfortable each hour. A soft chime at his door interrupted his thoughts. Come in, he called. The door slid open, and Zara entered carrying a tray of food. She had visited him every day, bringing meals and trying to teach him about Zilani culture. But today, something was different. She seemed nervous, her usual confidence replaced by hesitation. Sacred One, she said, placing the tray on his table. I have brought you the morning meal. Chef Kira prepared it especially for you, using the recipes from the ancient texts. Jake looked at the food. It was getting better each day as the Zilani learned his preferences. Today there were fruits that tasted like apples, bread that was surprisingly good, and something that looked like scrambled eggs, but was probably made from some alien plant. Thank you, Zara. This looks wonderful. He gestured to the chair across from him. Please, sit with me. I enjoy our conversations. Zara's eyes widened. Sacred One, it would not be proper for me to sit at your table. I am only a servant. You're not a servant, Jake said firmly. You're my friend. Friends sit together. After a moment of hesitation, Zara sat down, but she kept her eyes downcast. Jake had noticed that she always did this when she was troubled about something. Zara, what's wrong? You seem upset today. She was quiet for a long moment, her hands folded in her lap. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. Sacred One, I must ask you something. Something that may anger you. You won't anger me. What is it? Zara took a deep breath, then suddenly dropped to her knees beside his chair. Sacred One, I beg you to accept me as your bonded companion. Jake nearly choked on his food. Your what? Your bonded companion, she repeated, not looking up. In our culture, it is the highest honor that can be given to a Zilani, to be chosen by one of the divine guardians as their personal companion is worth more than any treasure or title. Jake set down his fork, trying to understand what she was asking. Zara, I need you to explain this to me. What exactly does a bonded companion do? Everything, Sacred One. A bonded companion serves their guardian in all things. They provide companionship, assistance, protection, and comfort. They learn their guardian's every need and preference. They become devoted to their guardian's happiness and success above all else. The way she said it made Jake's stomach turn. Zara, that sounds like slavery. She looked up at him with shock in her blue eyes. No, Sacred One. It is not slavery. It is the most sacred bond possible. A bonded companion chooses their guardian freely out of love and devotion. They are honored above all other Zilani. But what do you get out of it? What's in it for you? The privilege of serving you, Sacred One. The knowledge that I am helping one of the divine guardians fulfill their destiny. There is no greater purpose in life. Jake pushed his chair back and stood up, pacing to the window. This was exactly what he had been afraid of. The worship was bad enough, but this was asking him to participate in something that felt fundamentally wrong. Zara, please stand up. I don't want you kneeling. She rose slowly, her hands trembling. Have I offended you, Sacred One? I know I am not worthy, but I have studied the sacred text my entire life. I know more about human culture than any other Zilani. I can serve you better than anyone. That's not the point, Jake said, turning to face her. The point is that I don't want a servant. I don't want someone who thinks they exist only to make me happy. Tears began to flow down Zara's furry cheeks. Then you reject me. I'm not rejecting you. I'm rejecting the idea that you should be my pet. But Sacred One, you don't understand. This is not about being a pet. This is about fulfilling the prophecy. The texts say that each guardian will choose companions from among the Zilani. These companions will help spread the guardian's wisdom and strength throughout our society. Jake rubbed his temples, feeling a headache coming on. What do the texts say exactly? Zara wiped her eyes and pulled out her device. The holographic display showed a page covered in Zilani writing with a picture of humans and Zilani standing together. The text says, "And the guardians shall choose from among the faithful those who will walk beside them." These chosen ones will be bonded to their guardians in spirit and purpose, becoming bridges between the divine and the mortal realm. That doesn't sound like the same thing you were describing. Sacred One, for 2,000 years, our scholars have interpreted this passage. They have developed the bonding ceremony, the traditions, the proper ways for a companion to serve their guardian. It is all based on the sacred text. Jake studied the image more carefully. The humans and Zilani in the picture didn't look like master and servant. They looked like partners, equals working together. Zara, what if your scholars got it wrong? What if the guardians didn't want servants, but friends? She looked at him with confusion. I don't understand, Sacred One. How can a mortal be friends with a divine being? By treating them like a person instead of a god. Jake sat back down and gestured for her to do the same. Zara, I'm going to tell you something important. I am not divine. I am not a god. I am just a man from Earth who happens to look like the beings in your stories. But the prophecy might be about humans, but that doesn't make us gods. We're just people who try to do the right thing. Zara stared at him, her world clearly shaking. If you are not divine, then what does that make me? It makes you a person too. A person with value and worth that has nothing to do with serving someone else. But I have trained my whole life for this. I learned about human customs, human food, human preferences. I studied your history, your languages, your art. Everything I am is about serving a guardian. Jake felt a wave of sympathy for her. Zara, all that knowledge, all that training, it makes you valuable in your own right. You could be an ambassador, a teacher, a cultural expert. You don't need to be anyone's servant. I don't want to be those things, she said quietly. Sacred One, you may not believe you are divine, but you are still special. You and your crew, you treat us with kindness and respect. You listen to us. You try to understand us. Even if you are not gods, you are good people, and I want to help you. Jake looked at her earnest face and felt something shift in his chest. You really want to help? More than anything. Then help me understand your people. Help me figure out how to be a good friend to the Zilani without being worshipped. Help me find a way for our species to work together as equals. Zara was quiet for a long moment. Would that be enough? Would that satisfy the prophecy? I think it would be better than the prophecy. I think it would be what the original guardians actually wanted. And you would want me to stay with you, to work with you, if you want to, but as a partner, not a servant. As someone who chooses to help because she believes in what we're doing, not because she thinks she has. Te'eu. Zara stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the stars. My parents prepared me for this my whole life. They taught me that the greatest honor was to be chosen by a guardian. If I tell them I want to be your partner instead of your bonded companion, they will think I have failed. Then we'll have to show them that partnership is better than servitude. She turned back to him, and for the first time since they met, she looked him directly in the eyes as an equal. Sacred. Jake, she said, testing his name. If I choose to be your partner, what happens to the other Zilani who want to serve you and your crew? Jake felt his headache getting worse. What other Zilani? Dozens of them. They are all preparing requests to be bonded companions to your crew members. When we reach the homeworld, hundreds more will compete for the honor. Jake closed his eyes and leaned back in his chair. This was getting more complicated by the hour. Zara, I think we need to have a meeting with Admiral Voss. We need to discuss what's really going to happen when we reach your homeworld. Yes, Jake, she said. Smiled. I think we do. The conference room aboard the Zilani ship was unlike anything Jake had ever seen. The walls were covered in intricate carvings that seemed to glow with their own light. Strange symbols moved across the ceiling like living things, and the air smelled of something sweet and spicy that made his nose tingle. Admiral Voss sat at the head of a long table made from what looked like crystal. Around her were a dozen other Zilani, all wearing different colored robes that seemed to indicate their rank or position. Zara sat beside Jake, her blue eyes never leaving his face. Sacred Guardians, Admiral Voss began, her voice formal and reverent. We have prepared a feast in your honor. Our finest chefs have studied the ancient texts to prepare foods that your divine palates will find pleasing. Jake looked at the spread of food before him. Some of it looked familiar, like fruits and vegetables, but other dishes were completely alien. One bowl contained something that looked like moving liquid, and another held what appeared to be crystallized flowers. This is very kind, Jake said carefully. But I have to ask again, why do you call us divine? We're just people from Earth. A ripple of shock went through the Zilani. One of them, an older male with gray streaks in his black fur, actually gasped out loud. Sacred One, Admiral Voss said, her voice trembling. Surely you know of your own. Holy nature? The texts speak of the Guardian's great humility, but this goes beyond what we expected. What texts? Dr. Parker asked, leaning forward. Can you show us these writings? Zara immediately pulled out her device again, but this time she projected a much larger image. The air above the table filled with what looked like pages from an ancient book. The writing was in the Zilani language, but pictures accompanied each page. This is the Book of First Coming, Zara said, her voice filled with awe. It tells of how the divine guardians arrived from the stars in great ships that burn like suns. They came when the Scoreth invaded our world. The image changed to show what looked like a battle scene. Jake could see creatures that were definitely human fighting alongside Zilani against something that looked like giant insects with too many legs and eyes. The Scoreth were parasites, Admiral Voss explained. They came from the dark between stars, consuming everything in their path. They had already destroyed 17 worlds before they reached ours. Our people were losing badly. We were weeks away from total extinction. Jake studied the images more carefully. The humans in the pictures wore armor that looked primitive compared to what his crew had, but they were definitely human. One image showed a human soldier carrying a wounded Zilani to safety, while 3 of the insect creatures attacked him from behind. Then the Guardians came, Zara continued, her voice soft with reverence. They fought like beings possessed. The texts say they could survive wounds that would kill any Zilani instantly. They never retreated, never gave up, never showed fear. The images shifted to show what looked like a desperate last stand. Humans and Zilani stood together on a hill, surrounded by thousands of the insect creatures. But the humans were still fighting, even though many were clearly wounded. The Guardian Supreme led the final battle, Admiral Voss said. According to the text, he was injured so badly that any normal being would have died 10 times over. But he kept fighting. He killed the Scoreth Queen with his bare hands, even though she had torn his arm off. Jake felt sick to his stomach. The image showed a human figure, barely recognizable as human anymore, standing over the corpse of something that looked like a massive insect queen. The human was covered in blood and missing limbs, but still standing. After the battle, Zara. Sahé, the Guardians helped us rebuild. They taught us new ways to fight, new ways to think. They showed us how to be strong, how to never give up no matter how bad things got. The texts say they stayed for 50 years, helping us become the strong people we are today. Then they left, Admiral Voss added. But before they went, the Guardian Supreme made a promise. He said that when the Zilani needed them most, when the darkness threatened to return, the Guardians would come back from the stars. Pete Collins cleared his throat. Ma'am, with respect, this happened 2,000 years ago. Humans didn't have space travel then. We were still living in caves and hunting with stone tools. The Zilani exchanged glances. Admiral Voss looked confused. Sacred One, she said to Pete. Surely you jest? The texts are very clear about when the Guardians came. They arrived in ships that could cross the void between stars in the blink of an eye. They had weapons that could destroy mountains and armor that could stop any attack. Pete's right, Jake said slowly. 2,000 years ago, my people were very primitive. We couldn't even fly, let alone travel between stars. A long silence fell over the room. The Zilani looked at each other with worried expressions. Finally, an old female with white fur spoke up. Sacred Ones, she said in a voice that shook with age. Are you saying that the Guardians who saved us were not your people? I don't know, Jake admitted. But if they were human, they weren't from Earth. At least, not the Earth we know. Zara suddenly stood up, her chair scraping against the floor. May I speak privately with the Sacred Guardian? She asked Admiral Voss. The Admiral nodded, and Zara gestured for Jake to follow her. They walked to a small balcony that overlooked the ship's main deck. Below them, hundreds of Zilani were gathered, all looking up at the balcony with hope in their eyes. Sacred One, Zara said quietly, there is something else, something not in the official text. What? My family has been keepers of the old stories for 1,000 generations. We remember things that others have forgotten. The Guardians who came to us, they were not from one place. They came from many different worlds, many different times. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What do you mean? The Guardian Supreme, he spoke of a great war across all the stars. He said his people were scattered across time and space, fighting the darkness wherever it appeared. He said that somewhere, in a place called Earth, there were more of his kind. Young ones who had not yet learned to travel the stars. He mentioned Earth specifically? Yes. He said that one day, when Earth's children were ready, they would take up the fight. He said they would find the scattered Guardians and unite them again. Zara turned to face Jake, her blue eyes bright with tears. Don't you see, Sacred One? You are not the Guardians who saved us. You are their children, finally ready to take your place among the stars. Jake stared at her, his mind racing. Could it be possible? Could there be other humans scattered across the galaxy, fighting battles that Earth had never heard of? There's more, Zara continued. The Guardian Supreme left something for you. A message, hidden in our most sacred temple. He said that when the children of Earth finally came to find us, we should show them what he left behind. What kind of message? I don't know. Only the High Priestess knows where it is hidden. But Sacred One, if you truly are the children of Earth, then you have a destiny greater than you can imagine. Jake looked down at the crowd of Zilani below. They were all watching him with hope and faith that he wasn't sure he deserved. Zara, he said slowly, what if we're not what you think we are? What if we're just ordinary people who happen to find you? She smiled, and for the first time since they met, it wasn't a look of worship. It was the smile of someone who had found something she'd been looking for her whole life. Sacred One, she said, the texts say that the greatest strength of the Guardians was not their weapons or their armor. It was their refusal to see themselves as special. They fought not because they were divine, but because it was the right thing to do. Jake felt something shift inside him. Maybe they weren't the gods these people thought they were. But maybe that wasn't what mattered. Will you come with us to the temple? Zara asked. Will you see what the Guardian Supreme left for you? Jake looked at his crew, then back at the hope faces of the Zilani below. Whatever was waiting for them, whatever truth lay hidden in that temple, he knew they had to find it. Yes, he said. We'll come. The warning lights flashed red across the bridge of the starship Starbound. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his command chair watching the massive alien vessel appear on the main screen. It was 3 times the size of his ship, with smooth curves and strange symbols glowing along its hull. Captain, they're hailing us, said Lisa Hayes from the communications station. Her voice was steady, but Jake could hear the nervousness underneath. This was only the second time humanity had met an alien species, and the first contact had not gone well. Put them through, Jake said, straightening in his chair. The screen flickered and changed to show the bridge of the alien ship. Jake's breath caught in his throat. The beings on the alien bridge looked like giant cats that walked on 2 legs. They had fur in shades of gold and silver, pointed ears that twitched when they moved, and large eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light of their ship. The one in the center, clearly their captain, had dark stripes across her golden fur. Greetings, strangers, the alien captain said. Her voice was soft and musical, with a slight purr underneath the words. I am Admiral Kyra Voss of the Zilani. Defense Fleet, you have entered our space without permission. Jake stood up slowly, keeping his hands visible. I'm Captain Jake Morrison of the Earth vessel Starbound. We didn't know this was your territory. We're explorers, not invaders. Something strange happened then. The alien captain's eyes went wide, and she took a step back. The other aliens on her bridge began to whisper among themselves, their voices too low to understand. One of them, a younger female with silver fur, actually fell to her knees. Did you say Earth? Admiral Voss asked, her voice barely a whisper. Yes, Earth, the 3rd planet from Sol, Jake replied, confused by their reaction. We're human. The effect was immediate. Every alien on the bridge dropped to their knees, their heads bowed low. Admiral Voss herself was trembling, her hands pressed together in what looked like prayer. Holy protectors, she whispered. Divine guardians, you have returned to us. Jake looked around his own bridge in confusion. His crew was just as puzzled as he was. Pete Collins, his chief engineer, shrugged his shoulders. Dr. Amy Parker was frowning, clearly trying to understand what was happening. I'm sorry, Jake said carefully. I think there's been some mistake. We're not divine anything. We're just people from Earth. Admiral Voss lifted her head, tears streaming down her furry cheeks. No mistake, Sacred One. You are exactly as the ancient texts describe. Bipedal, mostly hairless, with the mark of the divine upon your features. We have waited so long for your return. The communication channel crackled, and Jake heard other voices in the background. The aliens were speaking in their own language now, voices raised in what sounded like excitement and joy. Captain, Admiral Voss said, composing herself slightly. We must speak in person. Will you honor us by coming aboard our vessel? We have much to discuss. Jake hesitated. Meeting aliens on their own ship was dangerous, but refusing might cause a diplomatic incident. I'll bring a small team, he said. Finally, of course, Holy One, we are sending a shuttle to collect you. And Captain, Admiral Voss paused. We have assigned our best cultural liaison to assist you. She has studied the sacred texts about your people her entire life. The screen went black, leaving Jake and his crew in stunned silence. What just happened? Lisa asked, turning in her chair to face him. I have no idea, Jake admitted. But we need to be careful. Pete, Amy, Ryan, you're with me. Lisa, keep the ship ready for a quick departure if things go wrong. Ryan Clark, the security chief, was already checking his sidearm. Captain, this feels like a trap. Why would aliens worship humans? That's what we need to find out, Jake replied. But remember, we're diplomats first. Keep your weapons holstered unless I give the order. 30 minutes later, Jake and his team were standing in the shuttle bay of the Starbound, waiting for the alien transport. When it arrived, Jake was surprised by how beautiful it was. The shuttle was sleek and white, with the same glowing symbols as the larger ship. The shuttle door opened with a soft hiss, and 3 aliens stepped out. They were all wearing what looked like ceremonial robes, and they moved with careful, reverent steps. The one in front was the young female who had fallen to her knees earlier. She was smaller than the others, with silver fur that seemed to shimmer in the light. Her eyes were a deep blue, and they were fixed on Jake with an intensity that made him uncomfortable. "Sacred Guardian," she said, dropping to one knee. "I am Zara, daughter of the House of Star Watchers. I have been chosen to serve as your guide and translator. It is the greatest honor of my life to be in your presence." Jake felt heat rise in his cheeks. "Please, stand up." "You don't need to kneel." Zara looked up at him in surprise. "But Sacred One, the texts say that all Zilani must show proper respect to the Divine Guardians." "The texts are wrong," Jake said firmly. "We're not divine. We're just people. Please, stand up." Slowly, Zara rose to her feet, but she kept her eyes downcast. "As you wish, Sacred One. Though I confess, your humility only proves your divine nature." Jake sighed. This was going to be more complicated than he thought. The shuttle ride to the alien ship was tense. Zara sat across from Jake, stealing glances at him when she thought he wasn't looking. The other 2 aliens whispered to each other in their own language, occasionally pointing at Jake and his team. "Zara," Jake said, trying to break the tension, "can you tell me about these texts you mentioned?" Zara's eyes lit up. "Oh yes, Sacred One. The Prophecy of Return is our most holy book. It tells of how the Divine Guardians came to our world long ago, when the Dark Ones threatened to destroy us. The Guardians fought with courage beyond measure, never giving up even when faced with impossible odds. They saved our people, then disappeared into the stars, promising to return when we needed them most." "When did this happen?" Dr. Parker asked. "Nearly 2,000 years ago," Zara replied. "The Guardians were described exactly as you appear. Now, tall, strong, with skin like yours and hair that grows only on the top of your heads. The texts say they could survive injuries that would kill any Zilani, and they never, ever surrendered." Jake exchanged glances with his team. 2,000 years ago, humanity had barely invented the wheel. There was no way humans could have reached this part of space. What did these Guardians look like exactly? He asked. Zara reached into her robes and pulled out a small device. She touched it, and a holographic image appeared in the air between them. Jake's heart stopped. The image showed a human figure, unmistakably human, wearing what looked like primitive armor. The face was weathered and scarred, but it was definitely human. Around the figure were smaller beings that looked like Zilani, all bowing in worship. "This is the most sacred image in our culture," Zara said softly. "The Guardian Supreme, who led the final battle against the Dark Ones. For 2,000 years, we have prayed for the return of his people." The shuttle docked with the larger ship, and Jake felt his world shifting around him. Somehow, impossibly, humans had been here before. And now, he and his crew were being treated as living gods by an entire alien civilization. As they walked through the corridors of the alien ship, Jake noticed that every Zilani they passed stopped what they were doing to bow deeply. Some even pressed their faces to the floor. The weight of their worship was almost crushing. "Zara," he said quietly, "what happens now?" She looked up at him with eyes full of devotion. "Now, Sacred One, you fulfill the prophecy. You lead us into a new age of glory, as the text foretold." Jake closed his eyes and wondered what he had gotten himself into.